Okay, here's the next thing we're going to take a look at. Okay, we're simplifying these expressions. Simplify. What you're going to do is you have a line, so you make your own line, and what I want you to do is look at things that aren't in a parentheses, okay, on a piece of scratch paper. So I've got 5x to the second, and I've got 5x. And what I do is simplify that. I can cancel out the 5's, okay? And when I have x to the second and x to the first, we get rid of the x to the first, and then I take 1 away from the bigger exponent. So that's going to be x to the first, which is just x, and that goes on top. So x goes on top. And then this parentheses, as long as there are no other parentheses like it, we're just going to put that on the bottom. Okay? So 3x plus 3. Okay, next, do I have anything that's not in a parentheses? I don't, okay? So I'm good there. I don't need to use this. So what I do is the parentheses that contain the same on the top. So I have an x plus 3 factor on top. Do I have an x plus 3 on bottom? I do, so those can cancel. I have an x minus 5 factor on top. Do I have one of those on bottom? Nope, that stays, and then the x minus 3 stays. Okay, now outside parentheses, all we have is this 3. You can't simplify 3. We're just going to put 3 on top. And then I have a parentheses factor of x plus 7. Do I have that on bottom? Yes, I do. I have a parentheses factor of x plus 9. Do I have x plus 9 on bottom? No, I don't, so that's going to stay. Then the x minus 9 also needs to stay, and there we have it. Okay, outside I have a 20 in the numerator, a 10 in the denominator, and we can divide those by 10. That becomes a 1, that becomes a 2, okay? Really on my answer, I don't need to put it. If it's 1, I don't need to put it. I'm just going to put a 2 on top. And then I have a 2x plus 1 on top. Do I have that on bottom? No. And then x plus 3 will remain on bottom. Okay, when you get two fractions multiplied together, you can combine it into one. Okay, now this one's a little bit tougher, not impossible. So in the numerator, I have an x to the third, not in a parentheses. And in the denominator, I have a 2x to the second. Now that 2 doesn't have anything up here, so that 2 is going to remain in my answer. X third, x second. You just get rid of the smaller one, then you take 2 away from 3, and that's x to the first, which would be just x. Okay, now look at your parentheses. I have an x plus 3. Do I have that on bottom? No, I don't. I have an x minus 9. Do I have that on bottom? I sure do, so cancel them. I have an x plus 1 and an x plus 5 on bottom, so those have to be written down. They cannot cancel. Those are in the answer. Now, next one. I don't have any parentheses, so what I'm going to do, it's all outside of parentheses, okay? So let's look on the top here. I have my 48's the only big number I have. And then I take x to the fifth times x to the second, which is x to the seventh. I take y to the third times y, which is y to the fourth. Then the only big number on bottom is the 6. And then x to the third is the only x on bottom. And then y to the fourth, y to the second is y to the sixth. So when you have a bunch of things outside like that, you got to combine them on top and combine them on bottom. Then we reduce. These can both be divided by 6. So that becomes a 1, that becomes an 8. But I'm just going to put the 8 down on my answer on top. We get rid of the 3 and take 3 away from that. It's x to the fourth on top. And then I take away the y to the fourth, and then I subtract 4 from 6, and that's y to the second, and that would be on bottom. That's out. Okay, that's how you're going to handle that. Okay, now I need to take you to something. You don't need to write this down. 3 plus 5 is 8, and 5 plus 3 is 8. So the order of addition doesn't matter. 5 minus 3 is 2, but 3 minus 5 is negative 2. So the subtraction, the order that they're in matters. So just know that. Okay. One big line here. And what do I have? I have 4x to the second outside and 16x to the third. Well, look at your two big numbers, 4 and 16. You can divide them by 4. That's a 1 and that's a 4. You don't need to put the 1, just put a 4 on bottom. And then I take the x to the second out and then take 2 away from that, and that's going to be just x to the first, which is just x, of course, on bottom. Now let's look at our parentheses factors. Okay, I have 3 minus x. Do I have that on bottom? Well, I have x minus 3 on bottom. It's the same two terms, but the subtraction's reversed. If the subtraction is reversed, here's what you need to do. Okay, you put a negative outside the parentheses. Put a negative there. And then that allows you to reverse the order. Okay, so x minus 3 can go away. And then x plus 2 and x plus 4. Now, you see that negative that you pulled out there? You put that in front of your full fraction. Okay, so if you see a subtraction where it's the same, it's just reverse order, you just do what's called factor out a negative. You just put a negative outside it, so you can reverse it, and then you put the negative in front of your answer. Okay. Okay, stuff outside of parentheses. I have 4x and I have 6. So again, 4x and 6. Okay, 4 and 6 can be divided by 2, so that's a 2 and a 3. So we got to write those both in there, 2 and 3. And then I have just the x here, so it's 2x. X plus 4, get rid of those. X plus 8, I do not have an x plus 8 or anything that looks like it. X minus 7, well, I have 7 minus x. So I want to reverse the 7 minus x, so it's x minus 7. So I put a negative out there and reverse it to x minus 7. Now we can cancel those, okay? And then I have x plus 3, which I don't have on bottom. Now remember that negative that was factored out. That means it goes in front of the whole fraction. Okay, next one. Let's look at our outside factors. I have a 3, a 3x squared, a 6x, and a 5. So what I need to do is combine those. I take 3 times 3, which is 9, and then I just have the x squared. And then I have 6 times 5, which is 30, and then I just have x. Okay, now look at 9 and 30, okay? You can divide those by 3. That becomes 3, that becomes 10. So that's 3 over 10. And then x to the second, x to the first. We take our smaller one away, and we take 1 away from the 2, and that's to the first, so x. X plus 1. Do I have an x plus 1? No, I don't, so that stays the same. X minus 2. Do I have an x minus 2? Nope, stays the same. 5 plus x. Well, I have x plus 5, and you're not going to factor out the negative because it's addition. Okay? If it's addition, you can just cancel them without doing the negative and reversing it. Okay? Because addition, the order doesn't matter. It's subtraction where you got to factor out the negative and then change the order. Then x minus 1, cancel. Okay? So this is my answer. So again, really, for the assignment, you got to write those on a piece of scratch paper, divide them down. 2, 2. You got to write those on a piece of scratch paper. Here you're going to put 4x over 2x squared, okay? So I can do that here, 4x, 2x squared, and then do your simplifying there. And then, of course, here, what you're going to do is, there's no parentheses at all, so I got 5, and then x to the third, and then y times y to the third is y to the fourth. Then I got a 15, then x seconds, x to the fourth, and then y to the second, and then you reduce that. There are no parentheses to worry about. Whatever I simplify this to is the answer. Okay, and here we have 3x over 3x. Okay, these will just cancel out entirely because they're the exact same thing. So it's just those parentheses. Remember, these two will be something I can cross out after I bring the negative out and write x minus 1.